but the influencing part was most limited to the celebrities of different fields.
Correct.
And of late, what you could see is it has moved on, and we could see even an ordinary person or ordinary citizen who have an extraordinary talent can become an influencer. And based on his talent, he tries to build a large follower base, and thereafter that follower base gives him an opportunity to influence.
Then fin-influencers, everybody knows, right? Even RBI had to step in, right, to regulate what are do's and don'ts.
Yes.
So it's that serious business in finance, right? Then education, edtech, okay, it has got its notoriety in the last few years, but if you really look at that, few people started by teaching on YouTube, right? And became so popular, yeah? They have gone on to build unicorns.
Even the confidence that people have today to use those platforms very effectively. A few years ago, many of us would not even want to express ourselves as openly on social media without thinking that who's
How
judging
will
us,
be perceived,
and then in our professional environment, how would that certain point of view be taken?
We become too buttoned up because we want to stay true to that title, and most of us are victims of that.
Yeah.
You want to operate in a certain manner, talk, you want to look like a certain designation that we carry, but then you just switch the context. You go to your house, you speak to your kids, you speak to your driver, you speak to your spouse. You are a different person.
People and whatnot. So I think the mindset dramatically changed from someone who is a planned individual to, in some ways, an expressive individual.
Yeah.
Someone who's thinking about a future to thinking about here and now. And if you just look at that mindset, then you apply that to the creator mindset and the consumer mindset and what it means to the business. Because businesses were planning, like when you say marketing and marketing spends, they were planning more based on goal-based marketing. And this is what would happen, and hence I need to plan for it. Now you are talking about a new base which is very, very different. So how do I influence this? And I think that's where I thought the creator economy actually is fitting in the larger picture.
I mean, the new movie that comes, there's always lessons and learnings and there's preaching. So I was reading that, and actually I saw the movie, and it's a movie that I was like, wow, I'd love to do a trip like this. It's interesting. Something like that, and relating to going out of your comfort zone, doing it. I don't mind, that's a personal aspiration, but I'm making a slight difference between within that personal persona, there are, I think, boundaries and different platforms for different purposes.
Today we are here to discuss about hashtag leadership, which by and large refers to social media influencers and their involvement in the corporate world. So if you look at, there are a lot of social media influencers who play a very active role, and there are a couple of stages what they go through. The first stage is trying and building a very large follower base, and to build that follower base you need to be much more innovative, and you should have an inherent talent to attract a lot of followers. And once the followers come in, it gives an opportunity for you to monetize through those followers. And how do you monetize through those followers? You try to create a content which creates an influence on them. And at times when you create that content to influence them, and that influencing will create some monetary benefit for you. So if you look at how these influencers are becoming more popular these days, they were able to change some of the consumption pattern of followers, and they were also able to change the way how the followers behave. And there is a lot more to learn by the corporate leaders through them, because something what many corporate leaders are finding it very difficult to get enough followers to find it very difficult to influence their own employees in the firm. But these influencers are able to influence a lot more people across the section of the society. So we are here to discuss that. And now let us start with understanding how big or how good is the creators economy is. Please.
About the topic, let's think of it this way. There was formal economy, we heard about informal economy, and today we are talking about creator economy, yeah? Because there is actually economy associated with this field. And just to talk about it, if we go through some of the reports, globally it's a $100 billion industry today by the formal definition. And it's projected that India is almost close to 100 million social media creators / influencers, from nano to mega influencers. So it's huge, and India is going to be the home to largest number of social influencers. Yeah. So yeah, they are creating content, they're getting our attention, they're influencing us, but how big is it? And just to give some examples here, we all know now also about, we had heard B2C, B2B, now we talk about D2C, right? Yes. All of you are aware of D2C, right? And talk to any D2C founder, yeah? One of his main foundation to build and scale will be influencer marketing, yeah? So these influencers are now helping get a new brand to market very, very quickly. They're also powering some of the unicorns, okay? They're not that small. Yeah, and some influencers, they can also make or break a company. Yeah, I mean, without taking names, a big FMCG giant had to really explain about content of the product because an influencer put out a post on that. Yeah, so there is a power of ad, but here the power seems to be a lot bigger. Yeah. So I think that's why creator economy today is very important, not because just the scale that's associated, but they're building companies and brands. They can make or break a company. They can make and break a belief. So that's why it's strong, and that's why a very powerful topic for us to debate about.
It's actually a great topic. In fact, I didn't know much about the creator economy to start with. But when I started looking at it and then looking at the implications, then I said, I think it's in some ways like what you said, 100 billion business, but it's also futuristic in nature. Yeah. So when you talk about futuristic in nature, you need to understand the mindsets of the people of current and future. What does that mean? And then I looked at maybe the three active players there. One is, of course, the companies and the brands. How would they really leverage it? Then the second I said is the people who are the creators themselves. What is motivating? What's driving them? Third is the consumer base, and of course the platforms through which it gets promoted. What's the role of these four interconnected players in certain ways? And an alternate thing that I was looking at is what we call as LifeCentric Trends, which is what's the mindset of a people, the consumer or a creator of the future. And one of the important things that I was seeing is, if you just look at the current decade, and especially post-COVID, where everyone wants to be free and liberated, it's almost a decade of deconstruction. And what you mean by decade of deconstruction essentially is, in the past, you would go through a very segmented, goal-based approach. That means you go to a good school, you get a good job, you get married, have a family, have a home, plan for retirement.
Take vacation only once a year.
Take vacation. So it was a very planned thing, right? Now suddenly you're seeing COVID actually induced a kind of fear in people, and it also liberated them in some ways. They said, I need to express myself. How do I express myself? I really need to express in terms of being bold. I just need to take control, whether it's travel, health, fashion. I just need to do it here and now. I need to create my own methods by which I can express myself. I'm seen by public, I'm appreciated by people and whatnot. So I think the mindset dramatically changed from someone who's a planned individual to, in some ways, an expressive individual. Someone who's thinking about a future to thinking about here and now. And if you just look at that mindset, then you apply that to the creator mindset and the consumer mindset and what it means to the business. Because businesses were planning, like when you say marketing and marketing spends, they were planning more based on goal-based marketing. This is what would happen, and hence I need to plan for it. Now you're talking about a new base, which is very, very different. So how do I influence this? And I think that's where I thought the creator economy actually is fitting in the larger picture.
Absolutely. I'll make a point about brand itself. So traditionally, as we've observed brands, a very well protected property. So anything about a brand, the definition, its messaging, extremely sacrosanct. And I kind of think that with the creator economy and more ownership being demonstrated towards brands that we use, is actually a very powerful shift. So it is not just a brand's push to its consumers, it is also giving a certain power to consumers for them to be extremely vocal about what they like about it, what they don't, would they want their friends and family to use it. And to me, I think it's just a very natural growth of a creator economy. I'm pretty certain a creator economy has existed always, but given the platforms that there are today, and also to your point, the liberation that people have found with their voice, with their opinion, even the age categories that most creators belong to, it is again a very, I would say, a space that maybe all of us at times want to be in that space. Given the amount of freedom you have, given the opinions that you're expressing, and you're able to defend that opinion as well. So it's extremely fierce. And bringing all of that together now with the power of the platforms that we have, and then being able to express, anybody can express. And that probably is the power all consumers are holding today. And creators, and okay, so professionally, when I'm looking at LinkedIn, there are so many people who are creating so many pieces of content. As companies, we create so many pieces of content. But if there is a certain person who has some sort of a weight and knowledge about that topic to any degree, be it through their work, be it through their reading, they kind of pick that up and they create an opinion out of it, and then that either becomes a popular opinion or it becomes a point of debate, but at least there's so much engagement that's happening. And all that was needed was anybody to put a piece of content out there. So extremely, extremely visible in terms of how platforms themselves are giving that liberation. Even the confidence that people have today to use those platforms very effectively. A few years ago, many of us would not even want to express ourselves as openly on social media without thinking that, who's judging us? And then, in our professional environment, how would that certain point of view be taken? But I guess there is a huge shift as well from professional opinions to personal opinions, and that makes each of us creators. So tomorrow I can go onto social media and I can comment on my favorite brand and why I use it. Will that make me a creator overnight? Probably not. But at least I've put my word out there, and at least it gets a starting point.
Actually, you make a very interesting point on, speaking of LinkedIn and, how we also have evolved. I think 4 or 5 years ago, my organization would say, you should be more active on it. And I was like, really, this is not me. I don't think I want to do this. There were, in organizations, there are teams who actually can help you. If you lend them your social media handle, they'll do it for you. And I said, no, there's no way I'm giving anyone that handle, because this is, if I go there, it'll be my view that will go out there. But the point I'm making is today, from there to now, if this was an event, I would be quite comfortable taking a picture and say, it was wonderful sitting with you all. Here's what emerged from it. But what I was getting to is sometimes it's about what's driving that behavior. This urge to want to post and express. And I think it also brings to an interesting point between what are professional platforms and the not so professional platforms, right? If we just compare and contrast a LinkedIn versus an Instagram, two very different platforms, where one is, of course, the more professional world, one is the personal side. In that personal side, it's become a obsessive, compulsive behavior. There are people who are multiple reels and posts, and it's like your world depends on it. If you're not there, the fear of, I don't know whether it's being forgotten or what. So it's really, like I said, really obsessive, compulsive behavior. There are extremes of what drives people. And if you look at the whole influencer category, some real youngsters who've got like a few 100,000 followers, and oh my God, it's like, it's another world. But even in the professional world, I've seen how this world is changing. It's no longer about just putting out technical content on a topic, on a subject, you do that. But and I'll just speak from my experience, I do a lot of posting on a subject that I work in. Here's the trend I'm seeing, here's what's happening in the industry. Every time I have gone out there and put out a personal content,
Yes, absolutely.
The engagement is.
the engagement is at another level.
Absolutely.
If I was to get 500 likes for a technical post, and if I go and share a story to say, oh, I was at my alumni meet, I got facilitated, here's was my journey, here's what it felt, that's suddenly 10 times the number of likes. So it says something, right? Because there's professional and personal, and yet there's a convergence, which I think says a lot about.
I think the point you're making is about authenticity.
Yeah,
Authenticity.
it is.
So then
It is.
your authentic opinion, your authentic viewpoint about an experience that you had, and that's what you're sharing with others. And in effect, you are actually then a creator.
I think
Because just through that one authentic thought process.
And you're absolutely right. I think basically one of the most important things that is just the underlying behavior which people are looking for is, am I able to relate to this? Can I be in this position or am I in this position? And someone else is expressing that. And which I think is, at least from a consumer perspective or a creator perspective, that's what is driving the behavior. And then when you, as you rightly said, you separate out the professional and personal side of expressions. You look at, for example, a brand. Is brand looking at monetizing this in certain ways and creating a connected economy around this? Then the purpose of which content to pick up and how do you monetize that is very different compared to an expressive content where you're, someone is feeling, I just want to express to liberate myself in certain ways, right? It is like, it could be called as FOMO as well, right? But that's what it is.
Yeah.
No, I also, like you said, the professional content versus when you have written a note from your heart, let me put it that way. Yeah? So I feel that today in this increasingly digital world, the human that's behind that digital handle, that profile, is even more important. And I think the moment the content that you put is actually, as you said, you're able to relate to, you're connecting to someone else as a human being, I think that makes a whole lot of difference. But the question is, and let me hear your views on this. Is it just for youngsters who are going to drive this creator economy, or this is more serious than that? And I'll say with 2 or 3 examples, because I was thinking that is it really just about the consumer industry, the media and entertainment industry, where we're seeing all this phenomena happen, or does this happen in a serious industry? And I think all of you would know, right? There are doctors now, pretty popular doctors on Instagram, right? And because that's the way they're connecting to their audience, their patients, and etc. Then fin influencers, everybody knows, right? Even RBI had to step in, right, to regulate what are do's and don'ts.
Yes.
So it's that serious business in finance, right? Then education, edtech, okay, it has got its notoriety in the last few years, but if you really look at that, few people started by teaching on YouTube, right? It became so popular, they have gone on to build unicorns, right? So now we're talking about, if you see that, can some of them actually become business leaders? Can they really set up a company? I think we're seeing some initial proofs of that, Of course, running a sustainable business is something different, but I think the industry is paving the path towards that. And so I feel that it's becoming very powerful. It's now becoming industry agnostic. And influencers are not going to be just influencers. They may be the future business leaders. So that's where probably this world is headed.
Welcome.
Welcome.
So sorry. I thought it was 2 hours of Bharat on the road, but then I encountered the real Bharat downstairs.
we thought you were influencing a lot of people downstairs.
So I thought of dancing. I saw a horse and whatever. So it was tempting by the way. But I'm so sorry. Please continue.
To take it from there, influencers have been, they existed even before the social media came in. It is not that they were not there, but the influencing part was most limited to the celebrities of different fields.
Correct.
And of late, what you could see is it has moved on, and we could see even an ordinary person or ordinary citizen who have a extraordinary talent can become a influencer. And based on his talent, he tries to build a large follower base, and thereafter that follower base gives him an opportunity to influence them. So maybe the social media has helped to create so many influencers, and these influencers need not to be the celebrities in different walks of life, but they eventually become a celebrity based on the special talent what they have. So is it that these influencers have an innovative mind? Do they have innovative mind? And does that innovative mind helps them to attract more followers and leading to more opportunity to influence them?
Actually, I think what technology is doing and create these platforms are doing are providing opportunities that never existed. If you look at really what people are creating, it's not just in the field of art, it's small businesses, right?
Correct.
You look at the housewives, the homemaker segment. It's fascinating when you look every day, there's some new proposition. If you look at, and some of them have moved to getting influencers, starting with sharing recipes to actually making a business out of it, to now being sponsored to travel the world and mingle with chefs globally. I follow some of them, and it's, I think, very energizing to see that actually. Little businesses, you sat in your own kitchen and whipped up something, and suddenly now you have 100,000 followers.
Seeing that.
And you've monetized that. You are now then doing cookery classes online, you have printed recipe books,
And they recommend restaurants.
Yeah, so it's an amazing world. I mean, that's just one little example, but I think also in a country like India, from remote parts of India, you see talent and so it's been such a leveler of sorts. The opportunity it provides is, I think, amazing. So the creator economy to me is actually a lot of that, also in terms of what it's creating.
Power with,
the democratization of
Yes. Correct. Yeah.
And even if you just look at the same problem statement from a brand perspective. I mean, previously, as you were saying, it was a influencer-based economy. You had to go to an agency, you had to get the model, you had to go through the entire pre-prod to production, post-production, and to go through the value chain, have a calendarized entry by which you would release certain campaigns and whatnot. Now suddenly you're looking at an X factor. You suddenly find someone like, as you rightly said, one of the best influencers, great thing, reach out, sign a contract in a short period of time, just in time, just launch it and you're done, right? So a very different, and I think at least from a future perspective, some of the brands I'm seeing is they're looking at a hybrid model, right? One is a calendarized model, and second, which is, okay, I will surprise the people by my next door neighbor or your next door neighbor actually trying to do something which is just like you or what you want to do. So that's going to be an interesting one for sure.
And to the question you raised, I think, besides unique talent, say if you have a unique talent, then you're a mega influencer, right? Then you have the kind of followers like you are a celebrity, But I think what, as you said, is democratization of expression of talent. And if you have a good enough talent, but you have this knack of delivering it in a beautiful manner.
That's what innovative.
Absolutely. So, and they work hard at it. I'm building a audio startup where we go to Bharat, smaller towns and tier 3, tier 4 towns and villages. And what I have seen works is that authenticity, original content. People want to see that original content, and a unique style, And in our case, of course, because it's audio, it's either something in your voice that's clicking with people, or the way you're saying it. But you take it to any other social media platform, maybe in LinkedIn, you like someone's way of writing, or in other, video platforms than the way they have sort of conveyed it. So it's a combination of, I think, the art of telling a story along with whatever talent that you're bringing of them.
One point I would like to add here, that not everybody's creation is a success. But the one thing that I notice is nobody's giving up very easily. Like the fact that just because you don't get so many likes, or you don't get a lot of pickup for what you're writing, and I do follow a lot of people who write, even if it is something very basic, they will put it out there, because the belief is that the more you're at it and you're showing that you're putting in the effort, that itself is yielding an impression somewhere. Just the effort of it. And if I were to, think of again, and I'm going across generations. This is not just about, the Gen Z or the millennials and everything, but across all of us. Maybe some things for us to put out there, all it needed was shedding that one inhibition,
Yes.
which seems to have come about very easily now.
True.
Just shedding that one inhibition, and then taking a lot more ownership of what you write, what you express, and obviously people's reactions make a lot of difference to it. Also, people want to be seen with people who are getting to be known. So that itself is another way of just the whole followership, etc., that's coming on.
In fact, talking about generations, I just wanted to maybe throw open a question. I don't know your age, my age, but we'll not discuss age here. But I know we are certainly in some age category, which is not Gen Z for sure, right? But the question that I have is, obviously it looks to be a great model. The question that's working in the mind is, what should we unlearn and what should we learn differently? So maybe I just want to hear your thoughts.
Do you want to?
What should we unlearn and what should we learn?
What should we learn? Yeah.
See, I represent a B2B software company, SAP, and I think the world of technology is all about really being so agile and be open to unlearning new things, because if you stick to one kind of knowledge set, you will become obsolete even before you realize. So I represent that sector where I think you have to constantly keep innovating, keep reinventing yourself to be relevant, because the market demands are changing, customer requirements are changing. Today you have IoT, tomorrow you have big data, day after tomorrow you have Gen AI, and all of those have got very practical implications as well. But really, when I look at even going beyond the realms of, say, technology field that I represent, and because end of the day, technology is for serving the customers who are from different industries, right? There again, when I speak to customers from oil and gas, utilities, FMCG, retail, etc., everywhere the common theme is about how quickly you can adapt to new market conditions, new requirements, new consumer sentiment, etc. So I think unlearning and learning new things is the mantra to stay relevant, is what I believe.
There is an opportunity to also be a little more purposeful when one is on these platforms. And if I look at maybe how I used it 4 years ago to how I use it today, I think it's a little more deliberate. Why it's worth analyzing and reflecting. Why am I posting something there? What is it doing for my organization, for me as an individual? What is the kind of people I'm attracting to that content? I think if you're a little more purposeful, your outcomes can be more effective. I mean, we're all on it for a reason.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a lot about networking, putting a content out there and getting the right people to follow, read it and respond to it. And I know, okay, now I've made a few more connections.
Correct.
Because in my world, and I'm talking of the professional side, it's really important.
Yeah.
So I think being a little more purposeful, we could learn that. I also see content sometimes that I'm wondering, what is this person posting?
Yeah.
Because there's posts that are...
Maybe that's not for you.
But what makes me think is this is a person who's in my network. So, and hence it's in my feed. So I'm like, what was this? So I think there's a bit to... One can learn a lot in terms of, if you just analyze what kind of people you attract, and every post actually sometimes attracts a different set of people to react to it.
Yeah.
I mean, we all know
that is the art to learn.
Yes, but I think that's the bit to learn.
Who do you influence by what you write?
Correct. So I'm saying that's the learning.
So by and large, what these influencers do, they try and have a demographic segment of those followers. And they understand what content has to go to which segment of the followers. And that's the way how they keep on creating content, so that every segment of the follower is getting satisfied with the content what is being.
See, there's very clearly a way to play the system at one level, because you can predict how that's going to work. But
one more thing is, I think the digital platforms have create an opportunity for all these creators, because earlier, if you have to create a digital content, it would have been very expensive, and now there are a lot of inexpensive facilitation where it allows more creators to come in and create the content.
I think one thing I definitely saw as leaders, and obviously in all these conversations, I mean, coming from an IT organization, you see a lot of youngsters in the company. The only way to connect still, and that connect is about personal stories.
Yes.
Irrespective of your professional world, you have to communicate your personal stories and blend it.
That's what they
You have to show your vulnerability. I think one thing which works well is I messed up. This did not go well for me, but then I learned, I did something. I'm still in that journey. I think the basic point of relatability, right? As soon as they say, hey, look, he could be a leader or she could be a leader, and still they are in the same boat. I think it works well. And at least one of my learnings that came in this entire process was, and especially talking to some of the people maybe 20 years younger than me, was the conversation about what we were in those years, what did not go well, what are the issues they are facing, and how do you really address some of those in the current times. I think that correlation worked decently well. People are not looking for thought leadership. People are not looking for leadership skills. They are looking for, can I relate to this person?
Correct.
So to the other question you had asked about learning and unlearning, I think for me one thing stands out is that actually if you look at some of the great corporate influencers, okay, so let's look at these business leaders. I admire Anand Mahindra a lot, and I think many of you must be following his, right? And like you said, he goes beyond all of us define, this is my topic, I'm in this industry, this is my subject matter expertise, so let me comment on this, or I'm a marketing expert, or I'm a tech expert, let me comment on this or write about this. He is versatile, and he is seeing himself as a human being. Right?
Exactly.
And a global citizen. He will also write about, I met Mr. Narayan Murthy, so he'll also write about, I met this rickshaw puller, whatever, right? I mean, so everything that he sees around.
Great example. Anand Mahindra is a fantastic example.
But I feel he's a rare talent, or his social media guy is a rare talent in terms of really bringing out the humorous, the witty bit, the creative bit in every situation that he encounters.
With authenticity.
With authenticity as well. I think you were also referring to this authenticity part in the last round of conversation, and I so much relate to that. Today when you go to LinkedIn, which is what almost all of us are, I mean, you know what is a cut and paste content and which is a very authentically written content, not from ChatGPT kind of sources, right? And then you immediately find a connect to that. And then coming back to your point of storytelling, authentic storytelling, and how it is relevant, and you are not sharing it as a part of your routine to build a network, I think that works today. And everybody can see through your marketing veil and exactly what you want to say. And whether it is B2B or B2C, I see this in my own company. I mean, we spend millions of euros, because we're a German company, on marketing. But the way in which you have started thinking even about spend on marketing has changed drastically. Because now it's not less about a white paper being created where we talk about ROI. It's more about a small customer with 100 million kind of a turnover coming and telling how my business got impacted because of technology. That is a far more better testament of your solution working. So everywhere, business, life, I'm seeing it everywhere. Authenticity has become a very common denominator. And when you combine that with creativity, then you got the right magic formula. You can cook something really great, to your example.
You know, on a lighter note, just before the Cricket World Cup, the day before that, on LinkedIn, there were so many people who put out comments saying, irrespective of the result of tomorrow, do not draw parallels of what happened and, pull it to life lessons and pull it to professional lessons. So and even those people got so many commentaries on just that one thing. So I think that part worked really beautifully. So, coming together for a cause, coming together to unite on a certain thing. Of course, disagreement, but disagreements, again, very healthy disagreements. And I just think that to us is so open today, which perhaps in our professional realms, otherwise, we're very self-consumed with what do we say out there, what we don't say out there, etc. Right?
But the other interesting point, you are talking about the social media and what you should and should not, just got me thinking. I have two daughters. My elder one is about 24, and it's difficult to talk at that age, right? You can't have a in-person conversation, like a father-daughter conversation, and say this is what you should do and should not do. So the only reason I use Insta properly is forwarding good reels, which is meaningful, which is, okay, you want to do exercise, look at the benefit of this. So I'll share some reels and say, this is what you should be doing, right? So yeah, I'm finding
so you're using influence to communicate.
I'm using influences to communicate.
I do exactly that. So I have a 24-year-old as well, and that's my subtle way of
communicating.
And there are some reels that I know she has seen and she won't react. I'm like, oh, okay. And then there are some which I get a thumbs up on.
Yes.
But interesting, then I had this conversation with her because on Instagram, she's an artist, okay? And I was like, why don't I see more of your posts on Instagram? And her view to me was, but Ma, Instagram is a fake world. Okay, she says, I have a group and I have a following. I don't want to be posting my art there because, everyone's going to say, oh, how wonderful, how this is fantastic, it's fabulous. So I don't want that. Because no one on Instagram is going to say,
genuine comments.
This was really... This sucks. You could have done this better.
Right.
She says, I don't see genuine feedback on Instagram. Everyone is compelled to do like, love, clap, hearts. She says, I don't want that. I'm not going to do...
Like in the Facebook world, every couple is a cute couple.
Yeah.
Every kid is a cute kid, right? No matter you mean to say that or not.
But I'm saying there's hence, and maybe not so much on LinkedIn, but on the other forms of social media, there's also a facade and a world that people are creating, which could be very different from their real world, and which is reality.
That is true.
That's true.
So there is a little bit of that where, we spoke of authenticity driving following, but there's the other flip side to that where
you don't get a genuine feedback.
It's a very it's a paradoxical behavior.
Everyone's in this happy euphoria.
Yes.
Oh, we are in this perfect world. You had right from breakfast to the food to your drive to work to what you had for... I mean, sometimes it's like, do we really need to know this? There is... They're living in that world more than... I was at an event recently, not an event actually, it was a personal gathering, and I had one of the friends who was in the group, and we were all taking photographs, and no, pause. We need to take a vertical photograph. No, but we're all spread like this. How are we going to take a vertical? No, because horizontal, very difficult to post on Instagram. And you see people who are not living in the moment because you're living
for that photograph.
For that photograph, which is I'm saying the flip side. And I don't think we've gone down the journey of what deep fakes could mean for this world, right? That's another really scary...
True.
So I think in some ways it's a question of how do we look at influencing a responsible creative economy in certain ways, in whatever form and shape, right? In the limited influence we have. Based on what you're saying, I mean, there is a quote-unquote a fake world and there is a real world, paradoxical behavior, people want relatability and a honest feedback. On the other side, they don't want to put honest feedback. They don't want to put honest themselves on the... So how do you separate the two, draw the boundaries, and then look at what does it mean? So it's a good problem.
I think it's a very important topic. I mean, you put it very well about responsible creator economy. But I think the system itself does have checks and balances. In the sense, when I see it from a brand perspective, so maybe in human personal equation, what you said, it's very true, it's either a like, thumbs up, or no genuine comment. But when brands engage with influencers and they're pushing a message out or a product out, there's measurability, and that's the beauty of tech, of digital platforms, right? So who has, so we work with influencers who will have 300k followers to 1 million followers. And you'll find that whatever task it is, whether it's to download an app or to go and use a discount coupon, you'll see the metrics, and then you know who has genuine followership or not. So I think the system itself is also building checks and balances.
So lead conversions are traceable.
Absolutely.
So coming to the other side of the discussion, personal branding. is it that there is a lot of compulsion on individuals to build a personal brand using social media? So of course, for the organization what we work, we have our own standing and we have our own brand internally. But there are a lot of compulsion which comes on individuals building their brand, personal brand for the outside world, right? And most of the time, the social media is used as a platform to build this personal brand. And how do we do it? And is it required, or how it adds value to individuals?
I'll say from a, okay, so many of us probably in our generation, for us, our corporate identity is a big part of our self-identity, yeah. May not be for the younger generation, but for us that, yeah. And just speaking from personal experiences, yeah. So in our friend circle, there are people who have stayed with the same organization for many years, grown to C-level positions now, yeah. So great. And there are quite a few who have jumped, jobs and whatever. And to each his own, different stories, yeah. If you haven't built a personal brand, yeah, getting the next best opportunity is becoming tougher in today's world. Yeah,
it is.
And also we talk very candidly amongst our friend circle. I mean, I ask this questions. What is the retirement age today? Yeah. Earlier people used to write 58, 60. I really don't think. See, you can be part of big corporate cycles. You can do very well, or something may go wrong with either that corporate or with the leadership change that happens, and suddenly you are out of job. Yeah. And it has happened to many during COVID, and great talents, right, out of job. To get back to again the workforce, yeah, and you're respectable, you're doing extremely well. I think what is happening in today's world is that people are looking at you. I mean, the personal branding is going to lead to the kind of network you have, and therefore probably will help you with opportunities. I just took the example of job here, but it can be any other kind of opportunity. I think it's becoming increasingly important in today's world. It's today's show and tell world.
So tell me, I mean, it's a great question, because for me it's a learning based on what you're saying. What would you mean by a personal brand for a people, as you rightly described, come from a certain mindset? We all come from a certain mindset. We have a professional branding. Yeah. We sometimes think we don't need to dilute that brand in certain ways. But then there is this other behavior, which is people are looking for a very personal you. Who are you at a personal level? Any good things that you have seen in the last couple of years which allows mix and match, and what should be done?
So I think I'll borrow from what Shalini, you said. You have to be purposeful. There has to be an outcome in your mind, yeah. And all of us are actually little long-term thinking, right? I mean, not like today's world, but we are like 10 years down the line. We will think like that. Okay, what do I want to be? How do I want to retire? Which board do I want to sit on, right? So we think about outcomes, and I think that is definitely going to define the way you need to build your personal brand. I've seen with colleagues who actually worked on their personal brand parallelly, yeah, because that person wanted to be a CEO, and he started to work on it, and he wanted to be a CEO in a particular kind of company, yeah. And I've seen this beautiful happen right in my own circle. So it's very outcome driven, and I think that we all know, any generation knows that extremely well. So you have your destination, outcome in mind, and that's how you build your personal branding. But it's not an easy task, I would say.
Sorry. No, go ahead.
I'm picking up from your last phrase, to each his own, right, or her own. I believe that personal branding is extremely important, because it gives you an opportunity to represent who you actually are. And this is not only true for professional life. I also believe that even in a large society, all of us live in large apartment complexes, and then really for you to be known, not because you want to be famous, it's because you want to build that social circle. We are social animals. From that standpoint, it's very, very important. Objective-oriented personal branding, absolutely nothing wrong with that. But the way I look at it is, I think your personal branding should, like I said, should represent who you really are. See, what happens is that because of the titles that we hold in our professional circle, we become too buttoned up because we want to stay true to that title. And most of us are victims of that. You want to operate in a certain manner, you want to look like a certain designation that we carry, but then you just switch the context, you go to your house, you speak to your kids, you speak to your driver, you speak to your spouse, you are a different person and you have to accept it. The challenge is how much of that you want to really represent out there on social media or anywhere else, and that's a fine balance. I come from a school of thought where I think that you must represent who you are, because at the end of the day, there should not be anything which you are not so proud of, and there should not be anything that does not represent your personality in totality. So just put yourself out there.
So that also goes with how digital native you are. So for example, one of my colleagues, she is definitely, I would consider her to be the next generation, but she's a good, very strong leader. And as a leader, she spends more time on the Insta, and she's very expressive. She travels to many, many places, and she's very bold in her expressions, in her commentary and narrative. And you will be surprised, everyone who joins her team becomes her follower, right? And one comment that I heard from them is that, look, she is very different in office. She's a very different leader, and she drives that behavior. Personally, she is what she is. And to your point of that authenticity and the connect, they say, I can be her. Because today I'm here, I can be her.
Exactly.
So which I mean, going back to that relatability, and she's very clear that I would never shy away from expressing myself. The day you think I should not be expressing myself, or there is a bound, I will move to a different organization.
But what you said, that comes from leaders who are very secure internally. Yeah. I mean, so like you said, we most of us are probably thinking of repercussions a lot more than we should be. But yeah, if you're a secure leader, then you will present yourself in totality rather than saying, how should I be perceived with this part which is most important for me compared to the other parts.
Yeah, you bring out such a practical reality, and see, all of us are insecure in some ways depending on where you stand in your life and what are the various commitments you have, right? But really, I think this is a very liberating feeling to have that sense of security and being able to face the repercussions in life. I think it's a journey in itself for most of us. Yeah.
But it's also not easy, because I feel that, for example, LinkedIn is a professional platform. When you're out there, you're representing your organization.
Correct.
And you're representing a brand.
Correct.
So and hence there comes with that a responsibility of what you project on that platform. I don't believe that means you compromise on authenticity, but you are limited to what you want and can put out there. There are limitations.
No, you're right. But
so I'll give you an example, and I'm being quite honest about this. For example, I have, that's just how I am. My professional workplace and my social network are two different networks.
Absolutely.
That doesn't mean I'm a different person or I'm faking who I am at work, but who I party with is a different crowd from, there may be a few common people, but that's a different, and a lot in social circle, a lot of people love this whole tagging thing, right? On Instagram, the party is done, I want to now tag. And one of my settings actually is very deliberately not to let people tag me. You want to tag me, you need my permission. And there's a reason for that. Because to me, while we're talking different platforms, what is out there on the net is one big
That's true.
social media. And to me, there is a responsibility that goes with being at a certain position. You're carrying your organization's brand. I'm not sure I want one party picture popping up somewhere. So what I'm saying is, but at the same time, I don't think it's contrary to being authentic. But you have to respect the boundaries and what you can and cannot do.
But that can actually raise a different question, and Shali, I'm just debating that point. 2 points, right? One is what others will do on your behalf. Like what you said, someone will tag you. And you're preventing that, which I think is perfectly fine. But I think to his point, on LinkedIn, should we potentially think of, in the generation we are, say, hey, this is who I am professionally, and there is a professional brand which also represents the organization in some ways, right? Organization view, my views put together. And there are certain topics which are of certain interest, and then you decide on those topics and say, this is my personal brand, and I will express myself in certain ways.
That's fine. See, there's a slight difference, right? For example, I was reading someone's post on this latest Dhak Dhak movie, right? I mean, the new movie that comes, there's always lessons and learnings and there's preaching. So I was reading that, and actually I saw the movie, and it's a movie that I was like, wow, I'd love to do a trip like this. It's interesting. Something like that, and relating to going out of your comfort zone, doing it. I don't mind, that's a personal aspiration, but I'm making a slight difference between within that personal persona, there are, I think, boundaries and different platforms for different purposes. I mean,
I would say the platform of choice is important here.
Yes.
I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
everything is, again, if you talk about LinkedIn, somewhere this boundary is blurring a bit today.
It is.
To a very large extent. I mean, you do find cat and dog posts coming up on LinkedIn, maybe
my
with
son
some
graduated,
lesson.
my daughter graduated. Everything is there, right?
But there's a part of that today, I'm not enjoying, because I was on that platform for a reason. When every movie you see and every match you have witnessed and every new restaurant you begin, you're finding a deep meaning and a story. It's become like, oh my God, this is like now becoming.
So I'll give an example again. World Cup. So somebody from India itself, I think, went to see 8-9 matches all over the country, etc. Very proudly putting it out there, family photos, etc., etc. There's a comment on that saying, "What about your carbon footprint?" And now, how do you deal with that? I would think that person wouldn't even have thought about that angle, but now there's somebody asking, so what about your carbon footprint, that you've traveled to all these places and everything, the vehicles you've taken, the flights you've taken? It's like, wow. That could be one of the reasons why there's a bit of a holding back as well on professional platforms. How much do you really want to express and talk about? And the facets in which things can go right or wrong, at times they are not even in our vision. So
but you raise a very good point on the sustainability, carbon footprint, because these days everybody has become a warrior on sustainability, as if the world did not exist before this. And every company, every individual, I think it boils down to that point, right? As an authentic leader, as an authentic person, if you don't believe in the idea of sustainability, if I don't care about this being a plastic bottle and I still drink water out of it, then I know that this is my positioning. Then I should not be creating a video sponsored by my company where I care about sustainability. I should not be doing that. And that's where I think authenticity plays a role. If you don't feel strongly about a topic, your company does, of course, post that video on behalf of the company, but don't come in as if it's your personal investment as well from a matter of priority. So, but very good point that you raise on that.
But having said that, I would just say the following is that not everybody needs to be an influencer. I know that personal branding is important. We all feel that having followers and a great circle on social media is also important. But it's about finally what your life purpose is. And if you have actually achieved everything despite not doing that, and I think many maybe from our generations have definitely achieved that without doing that bit of personal branding or being so much out on social media, you find many successful leaders who need not be, right? It's fine. It's what your life purpose is. It's just that the way the world is becoming, because the world is becoming very, very digital, and there is this pressure now that if you don't do, probably it's a question of survival and growth. And for many, probably of the younger generation, they actually derive their social esteem and their own identity from that persona that they put out there in the digital world. And because it's becoming like that, so so that's why the pressure, but that doesn't mean everyone else needs to fall into that trap, is what I would say.
Well, I think personally I feel, and that point that you have raised is so valid. It is almost a question of do you continue to be like you have to do it because everyone else is doing it, or is there a broader purpose to it?
Correct.
And if the broader purpose means that for your purpose, you just want to influence 20 people who are close people who will be like honest in commenting about your purpose and are associated with it, so be it, right? Versus, oh, I want to get 2,000 people, but half of them are fake lies or fake likes and whatnot. I don't know whether we would be in a position to differentiate that as we keep moving along the way the platform growth is taking place. But I do believe that responsibility has to come in at some point of time, both in the mindset as well as what the platforms enable. And currently I can clearly see the platforms are not enabling that. Platforms are all about get the content in, right? And influence in. So I don't know whether that responsibility is coming from the platforms.
It is in one way. If you see on LinkedIn today, like for me, a lot of times this thing pops up that, you know, given your expertise, etc., you've been selected as somebody to comment on,
add to
contribute to something. Now, I just think it's
AI generated.
It's something
it is, and
it's pushing you to be more active.
Yeah, it is pushing you to be more active. Maybe it could be an outlet to be very genuine regarding a thought process again. But it's also a lot of free content creation that's happening actually. So in a way, at times you don't know what you're signing up for as well. But yeah, that's true.
So I represent Educational Institute. I come from there, and the way how we used to target potential students, right? The potential students who have to get admitted for us. We used to have a different media of communicating and attracting them before. But last 2-3 years, our way of looking at potential students have completely changed. So we try to look at digital platforms, and to be honest, we also search for influencers who could influence that kind of potential student, what we want. And we try to engage them for the purpose of very focused communication, and as well as to get a proper reach to the potential students. So as Educational Institute, we started moving into this digital direction so that we are more relevant in terms of reaching to the target audience. So I hope the corporates also might be changing the way how they look at their own clients and how they look at marketing their own products and services. So how corporates are getting aligned with this what you call it as digital world.
Even their employee base.
So employees are actually, at least a few things that we do very actively is tell our employees to talk about their experiences. And it could be very small things, but something about a certain habit or how you lived a certain value.
Sharing their experiences.
Exactly. And if a group of employees came together to do something out of the way, but somewhere it aligns with the purpose of the organization, like for instance, flood relief activity. Now it's something you're doing at a very personal level, and it has to be personal because it's not a forced thing you bring upon yourself. But on the other hand, also it complements the effort that the organization would take to provide some kind of relief at a very large level, right? So what are you doing at your level, which is at a unit level? And employees are pretty much encouraged to do this. So having their own authentic voice as professionals, not just as influencers for other brands, etc. I think it's a very conscious move.
For us, it's the same thing. I mean, like exactly the way you described. There are individuals who are encouraged to talk about their personal journeys on different topics internally, and people have become quite open and vocal about talking about their personal journeys in a media which is seen by thousands and thousands of people. They are quite open about talking about it. Second is more from a professional outreach perspective, which is, for example, if I have to hire from the market, you would think about the alumni from the same institute coming in person as well as in the social media, creating the right level of posts and talking about the experiences within the organization and the circle and everything else that you can create, because those are the individuals who can create a much larger influence on those institutes. So
it will be also very authentic.
It is very authentic. It just gives that right reach, because people, going back to authentic and relatable and the experiences, all those three things coming together to this media, but that's on a professional side. I have not seen, for example, the personal stories appearing in the outside circles, right? I mean, individuals post it as individuals, but we have not opened up the organizational platforms for an outreach on the personal story front.
There obviously has to be a bit of a check and balance in place as well. And especially if the organization's promoting that employee's story, it has to align both ways. I mean, the person's personal interest, their personality, and even the organization's values and everything. So
I think
essentially a match of everything.
Absolutely.
But I would say it is happening more today, and there's a lot more openness even from brands and organizations to promote it than maybe it was 5-6 years ago, probably.
That's true. And digital is playing a role there. I would only qualify maybe from whatever I have seen is, see, brands do it or companies do it with a very clear objective that they also want to look good. Yeah. If I as an individual want to share my story where I had a tough time with my manager at some point in time, no, you cannot do that. So clearly you see a marketing angle there, right? And we can see it through. I mean,
they can't share any experience.
Absolutely. So the point is, let's be very honest. I mean, this is being done to show the good side of the human being as well as the organization. And on your point of the individual journey, I jokingly was telling my colleague that these days, if you were from a privileged background, which means that a typical middle class family, you got everything that you needed at one point in time, you feel left out because you don't have an interesting story. I mean, if you come from a hinterland with no resources at your disposal and then you have made it to this table, then it is a story that everybody wants to listen to, right? So I think everybody wants that level of sensationalism. Everybody wants that rags to riches. There has to be something neat in the story, otherwise you led a very normal life. So brands, companies also want those stories, right?
So well put.
So in all this, we've been discussing LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook, but there's also Fishbowl and there's also Glassdoor. So there is another side of social media. To your point, what you see on LinkedIn are these wonderful stories. We part of a CSR initiative, or my onboarding process was so beautiful with the bouquet and the
anonymous
chocolates.
Content creation.
But there's the other side, and it's a double-edged sword, right? You look at the other side where, and organizations have to be prepared for that. Today there is nothing that's going to go under the radar. If you're not going to be fair and if you're going to do something, be prepared for that to be as much out there in the media as anything else. And
so in the campus, any student, when they apply for any recruiter who comes for the campus, the first source of review what they do is through these platforms like Glassdoors and all.
And we do that recruitment process. It's standard part of it.
So they give a lot of importance for this anonymous feedback.
The Glassdoor ranking, because it is anonymous.
Correct.
So that's the point.
That's what I'm saying. Anonymous feedbacks are at times given more.
Exactly. You don't want to be a whistleblower and a known whistleblower. No, I mean, a lot of us don't have the courage to do that. Let's face it.
You don't want to be seen blowing the whistle.
Exactly.
And truth be told, for professional stuff that you're posting as on behalf of an organization, today every organization is getting you to sign social media policy. Don't forget that. You're not at liberty to go and share
anything.
Absolutely anything out there. There are training programs where you're, and I think rightfully so, because depending on the platform, you're representing a brand, and what you put out there is, so as long as it looks good for the individual, the organization, and you're telling a positive story, it's great. But there's the other side of
I think it's about the sense of responsibility as to what could be the possible repercussions even for you when you see your own post 2 years down the line. Are you feeling good about it?
Correct.
I mean, of course you can say yes, I could have edited it.
Once it's out there, it's there forever.
Absolutely.
So coming back to what you said, when we internally communicate, for example, I represent corporate relation and placement. So let's assume if I have to communicate something around placement or corporate relations to the student in the campus, and whenever I communicate, right, whenever I send out an email or something, back of the mind, I always think that will this become a digital content for somebody to post, right? And I'm very careful in terms of what I write and how I write, so that it is not getting carried into the digital media with a different understanding.
So what you're saying is extremely true, where it just seems like a thumb rule now. Any internal communication has to be so well thought out, so well deliberate, because it's out there,
Yeah.
and even under the guise of anonymity, it can go out there, and there's no way of tracing it back to anyone. So yeah.
And this is so true. This is so true not only for internal communication, whether you are on a Teams call, even on a WhatsApp call. You never know who is recording what, right? So one thing is about being careful, and second thing is about being real. I mean, if you are taking liberty and using language that you would not be so proud of when your daughter hears it, then don't use it.
Correct.
I mean, it's as simple as that, isn't it?
Okay, coming back to two types of leadership. One is hashtag leaders and corporate leaders. So what corporate leaders can learn from these hashtag leaders?
What is a hashtag leader? Sorry.
Creators.
People, sorry,
influencing.
I'm not on Insta, by the way.
So what corporate leaders can learn from those creators or hashtag leaders?
My view on this, and I think it's a great question, by the way, and it goes back to my question of learning and unlearning in a lot of ways.
Now, to add to this, there are some corporate leaders who happens to be a good hashtag leaders also.
Yeah, I
right?
was just
They are
going to say,
very
either-
popular.
either-
Like
need not
Anand
be
Mahindra,
either or.
Anand Mahindra, correct. So there are some good corporate leaders, and they have nothing to do in social media. And there are very good hashtag leaders, nothing to do with corporate world.
Yes.
So what is the learning? I mean, that's what.
Yeah, I think one thing for sure is, we want to exercise responsible leadership, whatever it is, right? And I don't think, at least my personal belief is, you don't want to change that. I mean, you have grown through that personal belief. You don't want to be seen differently, because that's your brand, that's your organization's brand, so you will keep that brand. Having said that, the second part of it, which is the hashtag leadership, that is also promoting a level of openness, authenticity, and liberated conversation. And to me, I'm thinking more and more, I mean, there is a muscle that needs to be changed, which is, don't shy away from sharing your personal stories as long as it has a purpose. Like it just goes back to purpose, and you are able to bring it out in a very authentic manner and connect it to what you stand for. You don't want to be representing something else for the heck of representing, but what you stand for. So to me, I think there is that required for the simple reason, end of the day, you are a leader for a set of people. And if you want to communicate, one is your communication, second, are they listening to you? And if they do not listen to you, this is the first characteristic, they at least definitely need to listen to you for the second characteristic. So to me, I think it's very, very important that that muscle has to be developed. And then
I would add in the following ways. So for me, it's a question on both sides. What can corporate leaders learn from hashtag leaders, and vice versa? And the reason I say is that all of us have seen many born in the internet kind of brands being listed, today in India, right? So you have young CEOs mostly, who have now been listed, and great brands, some of us use them regularly. And so imagine that CEO and the founder, right? He is also learning from the corporate leaders, okay? So it's the reverse thing that is also happening. The hashtag leader now learning from a corporate leader, the established corporate leaders, because now you are responsible, you are a listed company, you are answerable to your shareholders, besides your consumers, many more stakeholders now associated. So I think they are also learning, and they are learning to be, if earlier they would be too frequent and do many things in a more natural manner, I think today they just wait out before they put anything out on social media. Having said that, many of them have retained their natural style. If earlier I used to write both about work as well as about this, comment on that, they have maintained that, but they're, I think, just putting a little bit more discretion out there about what they're writing, because now they're responsible leaders, right? And on the other side, for many corporate leaders, yes, all of us cannot be, or all of them cannot be Mr. Anand Mahindra or Elon Musk, but they understand the power, right? I mean, when one of these hashtag leaders writes about a new product launch or a new service launch or a new scheme, yeah, and the way it galvanizes the employee base and the consumer base, right? And this corporate leader is thinking, can I have that influence? Can I have that power, right? So they are also trying to learn, but as you said, I mean, we are still too, I mean, we have a past legacy, and to become this, you will start to do the hard work that's required to still be your authentic self, but yet connect with your audience. So there's hard work there yet, and some leaders are actually making that effort to go there and rebuild their persona. I mean, I'm seeing some of the business leaders are actually a lot more active on social media today with their own voice. They have created that persona for themselves, and in a very thoughtful manner they're doing. So I think the learning is both ways.
Yeah.
The way I see.
I believe, in corporate world, and in many ways I'm sounding like somebody who is protesting the corporate world itself, but the entire definition of leadership, now it has been over-engineered. Everywhere, in any forum, fireside chat, etc., leadership mantra kya hai, what do you do, how do you... My definition is very simplistic, because end of the day, leadership is all about, are you able to inspire people to do something that you believe in and they rally? Gandhiji did not have a people organizational structure who used to report to him, and yet he inspired. I mean, he is the best example, right? And there are many more in India. I think, and most of us, right, we spend a good part of our initial part of the career where nobody is reporting to us in terms of reporting, right? But yet we influence people, we influence organization, we have a sphere of influence which varies from time to time. But end of the day, I think influence actually is something that remains.
It's a very nice point.
And that is true for the hashtag leadership as well, now that I understand, right? Because end of the day, you are trying to influence people. So which remains common in both the realms of life, no matter people are reporting to you or not. I think we have a very narrow definition of the leader itself in the corporate world. Leader is not somebody who leads an organization of 1,000 people. Leader is somebody who gets the job done and inspires people. And that's how I've seen people have from different segments, be it an admin staff in my company, be it anybody else. I think there are leaders in their own right. Right.
In fact, taking off from that and to your question, I think it comes down to the power of influencing. And to what you said, I think what the hashtag world does is helps amplify.
Right.
You can reach out to a much larger group. It's no longer about your employees and your company, but you are then reaching out at an industry level. On social media, we have interest groups, you have forums. I mean, I am as connected with my competitors as I am with I probably have more connects there than within the organization. But it's the power of influence and that's the one very fundamental difference, is the amplification that it allows you, right? It just takes it to another level.
So brilliantly put, yeah, absolutely. And that gives us a job security as well. That's but true, that's true.
No, but I think it also, in some ways, I feel it all in a very different way, and at another level, it keeps leaders a little on their toes. Because social media creates its own expectation and demands. If you are there for a reason and you have created a persona and an image, people are going to look up to you. Okay, what do you have to say now? What's the next thing that you're going to tell us about? So I feel it kind of puts a little bit of an interesting
positive pressure.
Positive pressure
It puts you
actually.
into a bit of a discipline and a practice also.
It
That
does.
you have to do something every 1 week. It's
Because
not
there
for
are
fear of
people,
missing out, but it is about. I think there are some people who are waiting for.
It's in a positive way. I'm saying I think it works positively.
So I think that discipline is very good. But then a good measure of how sort of finicky or obsessed or with social media you put a post for the next 2 hours. If you're not going back and seeing the number of likes, then I think you are in your very
then you're secured. Then you're
I think most of us fall in that trap कि अभी देखे कितना likes आया. So
because हम अभी बना रहे हैं followership, जिनका बन गया वो check नहीं करते हैं इतना.
सही है.
Okay, now closing remarks.
See, I came the latest, and I didn't even know what
Last
was the
in, first
conversation. But I just think it was. and I don't even know what will happen with this content, this conversation with all this camera here. Maybe they will also
We'll
just
tell you after you've said your
they will,
closing
they will also put this in the archive.
We are waiting.
We will let you know once it's over.
You'll see your influence on social media.
That's why I was very authentic, right? I mean, the point is, I really enjoyed this conversation. Of course, I met you for the first time, and I think we connected really well. I had a very good conversation, and like I said, I mean, not everything should be objective oriented. Having a good time also is very good, right?
Yeah.
So that's my closing comment.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think the power of what the creator economy is going to do is mind-blowing in terms of where it will take us. But we just have to have some guardrails around it. And there's a little bit about that bothers me. So I think with the right purpose, with the right guardrails, you could just take this to another level in terms of the power and potential. It's exciting times ahead.
One of the points you'd mentioned earlier was about how innovative does that person have to be. So if I were to sort of sum up our conversation and bring that in, when we're talking about the creator economy and maybe to an extent the kind of pressure that it's also putting on people, there needs to be some kind of a thought process also in place to say that, look, everybody cannot be outstanding. It's not that you put something out there, you make a comment, you try to be an influencer of sorts, or you're trying to communicate something, that you'll be outstanding at it. And that's perfectly all right.
Yeah.
Because that pressure in some way is also leading to certain negative behaviors, negative influence of sorts. And maybe it is demystifying a few things, but it is also creating a bubble around certain things. So to me, that knowledge and that deliberation around the fact that everything out there is not positive, or your own behavior doesn't have to change just because 10,000 people around you are doing that and it's perfectly normal, is probably something that needs deliberation, and that's what I would think for our future generations to sort of take stock of.
I would say, I'm just borrowing from what Darwin said about life and existence, evolution. So not the most intelligent will survive, not the most accomplished will survive. Those who adapt will survive and will thrive. So hashtag leadership is here to stay because the world is digital. Those who adapt and embrace it will thrive. So
Yeah, well said.
For me, I think first thing is to remain active on social media. That to me is biggest learning. And don't wean off from that. Remain active. Second is, I think the important thing is be human, be authentic, be communicative, and influence will happen. If your content is authentic, if you are connected, influence will happen. Don't worry about creating an influencer base. It will automatically happen if you are connected.
And give it the time it needs, probably. Maybe it needs a certain kind of time and effort and whatever. It does need that.
So at an individual level and organizational level, we need to adapt to the creators' world, and I think that will continue to happen. Thank you.